we will not waste time. We will start straight away. Okay, welcome all the HR fraternity members and the NIPM members and the well-wishers of NIPM. So today for the webinar series, the monthly sharing of learning and experience, we have today with us Mr. MP Sriram. He's a founding partner of Aventis Partners, and it's my honor to welcome him in a couple of weeks, second time, because last week we had the same presentation for our faculty members in ACMS. So second time I am extending a welcome to Mr. Sriram. And, basically, he is a law graduate from Pune University. Then he went on to XLR Jamshedpur to do his PG diploma in human resource management. Then he worked with Asian Paints as a manager, then as a consultant with the Hewitt Consulting, and as well as EY. Then he became one of the founding partners of. They started the Aventis Partners, mainly into consulting of organizational development, change management, people strategy practices, and all design, delivery, and implementation of all people solutions for organizations. And they have worked with Asian Paints, then with Kotak Mahindra, IBS Software, Reliance Industries, and also to name a few. And today he is going to talk about the role of technology vis-a-vis uh, the future of work and how it is going to impact business leaders, especially what is in store for the HR managers. So I'm not taking much of his time. So let's welcome Mr. MP Sriram on behalf of the NIPM Kerala chapter. And welcome, sir. And over to Mr. MP Sriram for his presentation.
Thank you, Anil sir, for the overview.
The platform is yours, sir. Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you, Anil sir, once again. Thank you, Saji. Thank you, Anish, for the invitation. Thank you, NIPM, for the opportunity for sharing my thoughts with my fraternity. Though NIPM Kerala is my home chapter, I should confess I am one of those inactive dormant members. So my apologies for that, but nevertheless, you have asked me to share my thoughts and I'm happy for the same. So without wasting any time, since we have a hard stop at 7:55, so I've set an alarm for 7:52. Let's see how it goes. I have structured this session into three broad parts, right? So part one, I will focus on what I see as the future of work. I'm sure there have been enough people who have spoken about future of work in the last 3 months, but I'll speak briefly about it as an introduction. I will go on to section two, which will talk about the impact of technology on the HR profession per se, and on each one of us as HR professionals. And in section three, we will look at what's happening real time as we speak right now in the domain of HR technology as well as in digitization of HR. So that's broadly how we will structure this session. A couple of points up front. One, I want to make it absolutely clear that whatever I am sharing is independent of COVID-19. So possibly COVID-19 has helped accelerate some of these changes, but some of those things that I am observing and talking about are absolutely independent of COVID. Second is, like Anil sir mentioned, I have had the opportunity of sharing these thoughts on this very specific topic in the last 8 weeks in multiple platforms. It all started with an opportunity that the HR team of a company called Intellect Design Arena, so an 80-member HR team, they wanted me to speak on this topic. And from there on, I have had the opportunity of sharing some of these thoughts with 4 organizations for their internal HR teams. I spoke with the faculty members of SEMS. There was an open webinar that someone conducted, which had around 250 people. The reason I'm mentioning this is that, therefore, all these thoughts are not necessarily just my thoughts anymore. They have been enriched with a lot of these thoughts that people have been gracious enough to share with me, right, through either questions or their comments, etc., and even post-program discussion. So that's the second thing. And therefore, I don't claim originality into anything of that I am, what I am speaking right now, right? So having said that, let's quickly move on. Okay. So I do not make any claims of predicting the future, right? I don't think anyone really can predict the future for that matter. And so all those pundits who are trying to predict the future, I think are at best making educated guesses. All of us who have started working before 2020 will clearly remember Vision 2020, right? So every organization, whether it's I think someone's voice is okay. Can I request everyone to go on mute? Thank you.
Yeah, Anish, mute all of them.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, thanks. So I was saying, all we need to look back is at Vision 2020. So all of us who are familiar with that, in the early 2000s and through 2000s, every organization under the sun, whether it's government, whether it's non-governmental, NGO, private sector, public sector, we all spend lots of time and energy in terms of defining what our vision of 2020 would be, where our organizations would be in 2020, where would we like it to be. I don't think any of us ever predicted 2020 turning out to be the way it is, right? So that is all that is there to all kinds of predictions. So I think the best that each one of us can do as professionals is keep our ears to the ground, listen to our customers, listen to our clients, listen to our people, right? And at best focus on adding value. I think that's the best that we can all really do, right? Now, so here are some of my own educated guesses in terms of what I see as the future of work. I am only talking about this in the context of the larger presentation. So one, I think clearly uncertainty is here to stay. And therefore, one of the consequences is that leaders are becoming far more open about their lack of knowledge about the future. Leaders are becoming far more authentic, right, about their situations, about their inability at times to grapple with the situations. And I think one of the results of this is going to be that there will possibly be lesser dichotomy between all that is written in the walls of the organizations and what is being practiced in the corridors, right? So possibly this will result in greater amounts of cooperation within organizations and hopefully greater trust within organizations. Having said that, I think the pace of artificial intelligence as well as machine learning is going to increase exponentially. So I think this is going to bring about a huge new dynamic in the human machine interface. I still believe, while I'm not a technology expert, I still believe we are still at the early stages and we possibly haven't seen its immense potential at all. I also see decision making becoming more and more hybrid, which essentially means machines will throw up patterns, machines will throw up predictions, and managers like you and me will need to take decisions based on these patterns and predictions. The other thing that I see happening is that more and more, a lot of this machine learning is being designed based on neural networks, something that most of us as ordinary professionals do not understand. And I think, therefore, this could also have a dampening effect because the pace of adoption could possibly get dampened because of the sheer lack of understanding of what goes behind these machines. The other thing that I possibly see is that internet will clearly become a public utility service, just like electricity is today. And possibly governments will go bend backwards to ensure that internet is available in all remote parts of the country. One thing which I'm seeing, which I'm sure all of you are also seeing, which COVID-19 is doing, is ensuring that a lot of these changes that organizations have been contemplating, let's say in the last 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and many of them nibbling around, are actually getting accelerated at paces and speeds and scale that we have hitherto not seen. You're all familiar with TCS's 25, 25, and 25, right? So this was a very, very bold, big announcement which they were able to make purely because I think of what the circumstances in the last 3 months. The other thing is that many of those changes that we have been talking within the HR profession and as HR professionals and as management professionals, right? I see all of this accelerating today at great paces. So for example, we have been talking for years about organization structures flattening, roles that do not add value, the middle management actually collapsing or disappearing, right? We have talked about decision structures becoming flatter and people in the front lines getting empowered. I see all this getting accelerated today with all the changes that are happening, right? I also see a negative fallout, which is some employees might start having disproportionate leverage on the organization as compared to the others, right? So this is something that we as HR professionals will need to deal with. I also see teams becoming far more self-created today rather than being curated by top management. The other change that I see is work-life balance becoming the default mode, right? We have heard enough ad nauseum about work from home, its pros, its cons, its benefits, the challenges that many people are facing working from home. But I think one thing is going to clearly happen, which is that work-life balance, right? So while today a lot of people are struggling with work-life balance, I think whether it is entrepreneurs, whether it is leaders, whether it's employees, I think people will be far less apologetic about work-life balance, about taking care of their own health. So people will start saying no to long hours. People might say start saying no to working over weekends. unnecessary travel. These are all things that I see actually becoming reality very soon, right? Having said this context, let's quickly look at how this is going to impact the HR profession and each one of us as HR professionals. The first thing that I clearly see happening is that people decision will potentially be far and more being taken based on data and insights rather than on gut perception and intuition. So there are studies which today estimate that maybe 10 to 30% of people decisions are being taken based on data and insights, and the balance is on gut perception and intuition. I clearly see this changing over a period of time now. The other is that algorithm-led insights, which both support and challenge managers' views and decisions on various issues, whether it is performance, whether it is potential, whether it is pay, whether it is potential, will all start gaining significant ground as we are going forward. And also employees will start demanding and expecting far greater levels of personalized services. So if you just reflect for a moment today, you have companies, you have organized, you have Google, you have Amazon, you have Netflix, who possibly know far more about you and me, who possibly know far more about our employees than our organizations do, right? And that I presume is the direction in which HR function too will go and the expectations of employees will go. So if I take training as one single representative area, even today, most organizations, training is predominantly organization led, right? So an employee typically goes through programs that are offered by the company, the HR, the training teams. Some of these are programs that the employee wants. Some might not be what he really desires. And today, world is democratized. The employee goes to the internet. He looks for programs, right? He finds interesting programs which are being offered by platforms like Udemy, by universities directly themselves. So the challenge today for the employee is not availability of content, but in choosing potentially what is most appropriate for it. And that's potentially where I see HR future combined very well with technology. So AI will help in deep personalization. It will help in pushing, recommending, identifying what's most relevant for the employee given his context, including various parameters, including the organizational requirements. And what HR professionals will need to do is provide the decision support in choosing what is most appropriate given the context. This is already happening to an extent. There are applications which are available today. Maybe we'll look at one as an example as we go a little later in the presentation. As is happening with every other function, I also potentially see HR as a function, the demand on the HR profession for doing far more with less increasing, right? And just some data. So Accenture in a study, some of you might have seen this, that they published a few months back, claims that over 5 lakh of their employees have completed 70 million self-directed learning activities, right? Where employees decided what they needed to learn over a 3-year period. They claim that the training costs have come down per hour by 25% and the training hours have increased by 40%. So if these data points are actually true in terms of what they claim, you get a sense of what technology is really doing to the HR profession. I'm sure some of you are seeing this. More and more of the HR processes are clearly getting automated, especially the transactional tasks, and I see this accelerating. So again, a report which was compiled by People Matters magazines a few months back, they called it the HR Technology India Report in 1920. They say that 20% of the companies that they survey, they say they plan to invest over 1 crore of Indian rupees. They're talking about Indian companies in new HR technology in the year 2020. Sure, some of these plans would have gone haywire thanks to the current situation, but you get a sense of kind of investments that companies are planning to make in HR technology. Again, I just want you to think for a moment in terms of what is AI really trying to do, right? AI is trying to predict and possibly preempt and influence all our behaviors, whether it's behavior of employees, whether it's a behavior of customers, both current as well as potential customers and employees, right? So as I quoted in the example earlier, our role as HR managers and professionals will be to provide the tools for the managers to intervene proactively. So just as an example, IBM has an AI-enabled tool that is able to today pick up
Looks like we lost. Sriram?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Sriram. Please go ahead.
Okay. For some reason, I dropped out. I don't know why. Sorry about that. Right.
Go back.
So, yeah, thanks. So I was saying IBM has an AI-enabled tool that is able to pick up unstructured content from various annual and pulse surveys, including social media chatter that is happening within the intranet of the organization. And it's able to send prompts and alerts to managers on a real-time basis. This is actually helping managers intervene promptly and has a significant impact on trust, engagement, and confidence levels within the organization. I'm sure you're all seeing the emergence of gig economy, and this is becoming more and more prominent in the last few months, right? So you all know three categories of employees are emerging. So we have the permanent employees, we have the gig employees, you also have the machines, the robots and the AIs, which are part of the workforce today. So I think the real challenge for us as HR professionals is coupled. One, I think hiring the right kind of balance between the permanent and the gig workforce is becoming increasingly
Sriram,
critical.
sorry to interrupt. Can you share your screen once again, please?
Oh, that's gone, is it? I'm sorry about that.
Yes.
Just give me a second.
Thank you.
Just yes. Yeah. Okay. Now I need to go back here. Sorry.
There must have been a connection thing. So
Yeah. Just give me a second. Yeah. So I can see the share screen. Okay. Tell me whether you can see this now.
yes,
Can
it's
you see
coming.
this now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. What?
Please go
Just
ahead.
give me a second, please. Okay. All good now?
All good, all good.
Okay, wonderful. Sorry about that. So like I was saying, the challenge for us really as HR professionals is possibly in terms of finding the right balance between the permanent and the gig workforce. And the last 3 months has clearly exposed the lacunas in most organizations in terms of the manpower planning process, in terms of how many do we keep on roles, right? So I see that as one significant challenge for us. The second is in terms of purely ensuring the quality of the gig workforce. I don't think that's something that we within the profession have provided any priority to so far, right? So I see a role of platforms like Upwork, Fiverr, which are all gig platforms. Even in India, you have a platform called Noble House, right? I see the role of all these significantly increasing, right? And that's something that we will need to pay attention to. The other thing which I see happening is that employment contracts for that small set of employees who will have undue leverage is going to become far more personalized, right? This potentially will also create a problem in terms of a new hierarchy and class system within organizations. And the challenge for us as a profession will be how do we deal with this new dynamics? And for these set of employees, gone would be the sacrosanctity of bands, compensation ranges, midpoints, medians, etc. So that's something that we will need to deal with. I think the other thing that we will need to handle is that as pace of digitization increases, so would be the importance of people relationships and people skills, right? So in many an organization today, emotional intelligence is a prerequisite, but for a small set of roles, it could be either for the leaders, it could be for the mid management. But one significant shift that I see happening is that emotional intelligence will become more and more a necessity for employees across the levels, right? So sub skills like self-awareness, self-confidence, self-regulation, empathy, etc., will become more and more critical. And I think again, for us as a profession, integration of all this, right, into all aspects of people management, whether it's hiring, whether it's development, whether it's promotion. And I think most importantly, using technology, right, to help in this process is something which is going to become critical, right? Also helping build social skills at scale, because one of the things which we are clearly seeing is that work from home is going to become a reality, distributed working is going to become a reality. Therefore, helping people across the organization build some of these basic social skills is also going to become a challenge for all of us. The other thing which I am seeing happening, right, COVID or no COVID, right, is clearly a fundamental mind shift that is happening within the profession per se. And I think this is the mind shift of saying that we have stopped as a profession to worry about that mythically perfect HR system and are far more comfortable with the fact that you could have different kinds of HR systems and processes which are suitable and contextually relevant, right? We are also becoming slowly far more accepting of the fact that policies can't be static. They need to be far more dynamic, right? And slowly we are beginning to show far greater levels of flexibility. And I think that's something that clearly is going to be an ask from us, right? Assessment of impact of HR initiatives too, I think is going to happen more and more in real time. So again, I'm sure in some of your organizations, you're already beginning to measure engagement, not anymore on a yearly basis, but maybe on a half yearly basis, on a quarterly basis, right? But the demand really from many an organization is to today look at and know the pulse of their people real time. So that's the other thing that we will need to deal with. And I think the last significant mind shift change is that while as a profession, we are accountable for results. I'm not saying no, right? We are accountable for people results. We are accountable for business results. But I think the level of accountability that is being demanded or that will be demanded from us from within the HR profession, I think is going to be far, far more higher. And we will just not be seen anymore as people who are designers of the right process, right? And who are possibly the people who are the custodians of quote and unquote the appropriate process within organization, right? So all this I also see having some impact on the skills that need to be possessed by all of us within the profession. So one of the other changes that I see is that the role of government, right, I see as becoming more and more heightened, right, in the years to come. And with greater uncertainties, with greater insecurities today, again, last 3 months has accelerated that process, right? I see employees organizing themselves far, far more to protect their own rights. So this could either be in the form of traditional unions for blue collar employees, or for the knowledge workers, it could be in the form of various kinds of pressure groups and interest groups using all kinds of media technologies and platforms, right? So therefore, some of the skills that people in the corporate world thought were redundant for the HR professional, whether it's dealing with the government, dealing with employees as groups, with unions, I think will become more relevant and critical going forward. The other thing is that I think our skills to design and run processes that are able to co-create the future will also become far more critical. Many of us pride in our ability to listen, right, well to employees and also to be possibly agile. But I think the ask for us will be now intelligently using technology, right, to listen and act in real time, especially in this distributed world. So I see that as clearly a new ask emerging from all of us. Digital competency, some of you I'm sure are again seeing that is becoming slowly mandatory for some HR roles, right? So skills like data fluency, statistics, analytics, data usage, privacy laws in different countries are also slowly becoming skills for some HR professions, HR roles. I see this becoming more and more accelerated, and you will have more and more HR roles which will demand comfort and skill levels in these domains, right? Again, many of us as HR professionals today pride in our ability to impact the employee experience. We pride in our ability to design the employee experience. But I think our ability to evaluate the various market offerings which are there today, right? Evaluate these offerings, assess and evaluate the technology that goes behind these offerings is all going to become very, very critical in terms of skill sets that are being demanded from us. In terms of career paths, I see while traditional career paths might continue to remain for some foreseeable future, with more and more HR operational tasks being digitized, being optimized, right? I see slowly over a period of time dissolution of some of these functional clusters along which we are organized today. I clearly also see three distinct career paths which are emerging. So one, I see HR tech becoming clearly a career path. It's slowly beginning to happen in some organizations already. So you will more and more have people who have dedicated skills to design, evaluate, deploy technology-enabled people processes. That would become a specialized path by itself. Second, I see managing employee experience becoming a dedicated career path. Just like you have dedicated sets of people managing customer experience, I see a dedicated career path for people who will be managing employee experience, and collaborating with AI using insights from AI would become extremely critical for these kind of roles, right? And supporting and sustaining change again, I think will become a specialized skill within the profession. So these are three clear new career paths that I am seeing emerge, right, going forward. So these are some of my insights in terms of what I see as the future of work and how I see it impacting the larger HR profession and each one of us as HR professionals. Now, having said this, let's go into the last segment of the discussion, which is in terms of saying what is it that is happening right now in the world of HR technology as well as in terms of digitization of HR. I want to make a disclaimer upfront. I'm going to be talking about some products, right? Now, I just need to be clear, neither me personally nor my firm Aventis Partners has any commercial interest in any of these products that I'm going to be talking about. I have just picked on some of these products as examples to showcase, to tell you what is happening within the world of HR technology. That is all, right? So having said that, with gig workforce becoming more mainstream, I see companies institutionalizing technologies that will help both the remote and the in-company people co-work and co-perform with each other. Having said that, while there are cloud-based HRIS solutions which are available in the market today, I see the adoption of that still being a little slow, right? So I still see that at its infancy phase in terms of adoption. Slowly, core HR systems are being replaced by core HR platforms, right? With ability to plug and play of various applications. And some of it have its own marketplace. So you have something like a Workday, which is a platform, which will also have a whole host of applications which they are hawking along with the same, right? And today, everyone is collaborating with each other. So I just saw a post yesterday in the, I think, the NIPM group, right? Wherein someone had commented about Apple and Google working together right now in terms of creating some kind of a health cap app for the UK government, right? The other example that we all are familiar with is Facebook using Google Maps, right? They compete with each other in various places, but they also collaborate in areas of their strength, right? And this is the same thing that is happening even within the HR domain, right? So slowly but steadily, costly ERPs are slowly getting replaced by SaaS applications across functional domains, whether it's recruitment, whether it's training, whether it's payroll, right? Whether it is benefits, whether it's analytics. So slowly you have SaaS applications which are gaining ground. And I think the challenge for each one of us within the profession is today actually to pick and choose whatever are those appropriate apps and platforms that are best suited for our circumstances as an organization, right? And pick and choose them. So today you have dedicated sites like Select Hub, right? Which are there, which help you choose. I have placed the link of the same in the presentation. You can look at it whenever you want, right? The only reason why I am taking Select Hub as an example is for you to see the kind of choice that is available in front of each one of us as an HR professional, right? And sometimes that choice can be mind-boggling. I also want to spend possibly the next 10, 12 minutes, right, in terms of looking at some of those functional areas where you have technology making an impact, right? And let's start with talent acquisition, because that clearly is an area where technology has been used for the better part of 15 years, if not more, right? So candidate screening and matching technology, right, is something that is revolving extremely fast. And I thought I will take the example of IBM Watson recruitment, right? Simply because it is a great example of what progress is being made in this domain, right? Not necessarily a tool which has great adoption in the Indian market, but clearly something which is leading from a technology perspective. And I want to highlight 3 of its key features. The first thing is it creates a match score for every potential candidate. Second, it helps recruiters prioritize requisitions that they are working on in real time. And third thing is it provides insights for the organizations based on social listening. So quickly, if we look at each one of them, while creating a match score, what it does at a very simplistic level is very, very, very simple. So it looks at the requisition, it looks at the desired skills as well as the mandatory skills, technical and soft skills. It also does a similar analysis, all the structured and the unstructured data that might be there from the application, right? It uses its own patented technology, including what it calls as a language classifier. And from this, it comes out with a mathematical score for each candidate, which will reflect the candidate's ability to perform the job. It makes, therefore, the screening process possibly that much more robust, right? Screening or the selection process. Second is in terms of prioritizing requisition. What it does is it looks at historical requisition data and arrives at a complexity score for each position. It also looks at the current progress of the application, right, against the time that has been allotted for filling the requisition. And based on a combination of both of this, it is able to highlight to the recruiter saying which are those requisitions which require to be worked on a priority. Third is what it does is it looks at the various kinds of reviews which are being written about the organizations in various third-party platforms, not just about the organization, but also about its closest comparators, right? And this data becomes extremely critical for the talent acquisition teams as well as for the employer branding teams to position the organization accordingly, right? So you're able to calibrate based on real-time market feedback. It also classifies whatever articles that are appearing about the company in various public media, social media, into positive and negative. So these are 3 key features which IBM Watson recruitment is doing. To my mind, these are clearly advances of what's happening in the talent acquisition technology space. Chatbots, I am sure some of you are already beginning to see it, are clearly making again its presence felt within the HR domain, right? So they are being used by companies, especially those companies which are hiring in fairly large numbers. So you have companies like McDonald's, IKEA, which hire in fairly large numbers, which are using chatbots in the hiring process. So chatbots are being used to collect basic information about the candidates. It could be the resume, it could be the contact information. Chatbots ask screening questions on basic skills that are required, experience levels, right? They also help rank candidates not just on the basis of qualification and skills, but also in terms of the level of engagement that they are showing within the with the hiring process, right? Chatbots also answer some FAQs that the candidates might ask, both about the role as well as about the hiring process. And chatbots also are able to schedule interviews between the candidate and the human recruiter. I've just listed some of the features for you to get a sense. In most organizations in our country, even today, these are all activities that are being performed by the human recruiter, right? And chatbots are making inroads into this pretty fast and also making the process that much more effective and efficient. You also have a chatbot called Olivia from a company called Paradox, which is able to do all this from the comfort of a mobile, right? IBM again has an interesting app I wanted to quickly spend a minute talking about. It's called the Watson Candidate Assistant. So what it does is from the multitude of roles that might be available in an organization to a candidate, it through an interactive process picks up and chooses for the candidate what could be the closest matched role for the individual. So let's take an HR example. Let's say you are an HR professional with 8 years of experience. Let's say you spend the first 4 years of your life in a HR generalist role in a medium-sized company, let's say a 500-member organization. Then you moved on to a specialist, let's say a learning and development role, right? In a slightly more larger organization for the next 4 years. And today you are applying for a role in a large organization, let's say of 10,000 people, maybe with a 200-member HR team. What Watson Candidate Assistant does is it goes through an interactive process of dialoguing with you. It looks at your data, right? And it helps you pick possibly what could be the closest role wherein you would have the greatest chance of succeeding in that organization, given your skill set, right? So again, I think a wonderful example of what AI is able to do in the candidate engagement process and talent acquisition process. Chatbots are also making their presence felt in the domain of employee experience, right? Both in terms of capturing data on employee engagement real time, as well as in terms of impacting it. Some of you might be familiar with this product called Amber from a company called Infido, because Amber is today being used fairly extensively, at least by the larger corporates in India today, right? So yes, there are challenges. There are companies which feel that Amber is a little on the expensive side. But having said that, again, it gives us a sense in terms of where predictive people analytics is going. So what Amber really does is it chats with employees at various stages of their employee life cycle. It could be day 1, it could be day 10, day 30, day 60, so on and so forth during their entire employment journey. It finds out people who are unhappy. It finds out people who might be at the risk of leaving, who might be disengaged, right? And it throws up what it calls as a culture report, right? It's a fortnightly culture report that Amber throws up, and it highlights people who need attention. And this is something that can be acted upon real time, both by the HR managers as well as by the line managers, right? A product again which seems to be getting used, like I said, extensively in India. So you have companies like the large ones like the Unilever, like could be Airtel, it could be GE, which is using Amber today, right? And they seem to have a lot of glowing reviews. So I have also attached a link to a promo video of Amber. You can go through it whenever convenient again, right? In the interest of time, I'm not spending time on that, right? The other progress that chatbots are clearly making is that chatbots are able to provide real-time answers today to employee queries, not just FAQs, right? They are even going beyond FAQs and are able to offer customized responses to people, right? And you have multiple offerings which are there. So Ramco has something called Chia, which they call as a personal assistant, which is able to provide a lot of insights to people and answers to people on the go. The other area where I wanted to spend a couple of minutes around is career planning, because this is an area where I think technology is again making inroads, right? And something that we have been talking about within the profession, which is in terms of saying employees owning their careers, taking careers into their own hands, is being enabled by technology today. So there is a platform called, there is an app called Gloat, right? Which is an internal talent marketplace, which is again being used by fairly large companies. We have companies like Unilever and Schneider Electric that are using Gloat. I'm sure some of you might be getting getting these feeds of gloat on your various social media profiles, because gloat has gone on a very, very aggressive social media campaign, especially during COVID. And you have the CEO of Unilever Worldwide who is talking about how gloat is actually helping them, right, move talent globally from parts of the businesses where they are not really required today to parts of the business where the talent is really required on a real-time basis. So that's one. The other is Schneider Electric, which gives you a quick sense of how gloat is being used, right? So at a very simplistic level, again, what it is doing is the employee is required to punch in information about his. It's an internal talent marketplace, right? It's not an external market talent place. So let's say Schneider Electric maybe has around 70,000 employees across the world, right? Every employee has the opportunity of going into the system, punching in his profile, his educational details, skill details, including his interest, right? And what it does is on a real-time basis, it starts throwing up various part-time projects which could be there within the company, which match their experience and interest. It throws up full-time positions anywhere within the Schneider world. It also throws up mentorship opportunities which might be available with various leaders within the organization, right? At the same time, leaders, all that they need to do is fill in their requirements, and on a real-time basis, they are prompted with people who might fit their requirements, right? You have multiple tools of this genre. So there is something called Fuel 50, and John Bershin, I'm sure many of you are familiar with him, right? Has actually written an extensive case study on Fuel 50. Just Google, you will get the details of the same, right? The point I'm making is something that we call as an internal job posting system in many of our organizations today for the last decade or so is getting amplified and is getting supported by technology and artificial intelligence to a great extent, right? And I think this is an area where again there is significant stride that technology is making within the HR profession. In terms of training, right? Training is another area where technology is clearly making some progress. There are two apps that I quickly want to talk about, right? One is an app called Digreed and the other is It's Your Skills. Some of you might be familiar with it. Now, I realize that I have only a couple of minutes more, so I'm going to run quickly, okay? Digreed is an AI, which is an example that I quoted earlier in the presentation. What Degree does is basically connects people within the organization and the internal learning systems to the whole host of technology, a whole host of learning resources which are there in the open world, right? These could be the millions of courses, the podcasts, the books, including whatever is there in the learning management systems of organization, right? So that's something that Degree is doing extremely well. And from whatever little I understand about the various products that are there, I am very comfortable to say that this is a product which seems to be far superior to whatever is there, and AI is really able to personalize learning and development of our employees and provide them with whatever they need in terms of a real-time basis. As far as coaching is concerned, there are products which are available. So your products like LeaderAmp, etc., which are there, which are being used by some organizations, right? But my personal assessment again is this is a domain where still there is a lot of way to go, right? So technology clearly has not evolved as far as this is concerned, right? There is a last example I want to share with. I have omitted one, right, in the interest of time again, and this is in the area of gamification. I'm sure all of us are familiar with what happens in gamification and even the role of gamification as far as training is concerned, right? But there's a product called Oglinks, which is doing a significant role as far as gamification of their onboarding process is concerned, right? And I'm sure as HR professionals, we all struggle with the onboarding process, right? Just to ensure sheer consistency of the onboarding process. And Oglinks is something which is doing a wonderful job. So what it's doing is at a very simplistic level, making the whole process very engaging and fun, but at the same time ensuring that there is knowledge sharing which is happening. So app is using a whole host of activities, right? From help asking the employees to snap photos and upload those photos, take surveys, take quizzes to check their knowledge. There are GPS check-ins that people need to do, right? GPS check-ins just to ensure that they are visiting the various places of the organization that they are supposed to visit. They are supposed to scan QR codes, and QR codes are kept in all kinds of places in the organization. It could be in printed material, websites, videos, right? They are required to record videos if they so desire, of interesting conversations they can have with people, of interesting things that they have observed during the induction process. And so this is again a product that I would encourage you to have a look at, just to get a sense of how technology is helping us within the profession. I just wanted to share some of these examples with you so that you get a broad sense of what is happening as far as the technology developments in our profession are concerned. And I want to just leave you with two concluding thoughts before I close. One is, I think, more as professionals and as a profession, we are able to transition from perception-based recommendations to data and insights-based recommendations. I think clearly the greater would be our role and impact in decision making. And second is, I'm fond of saying, and I'm sure many of you will agree with me, tools are easy to buy, culture is still difficult to build, and still needs our hands and brains for us to curate, right? And if we are able to show the impact on the desired culture on measurable business results, I think we will be able to prove what intuitively we all know and what academics have been speaking about for years now, right? So that's broadly it from me. Thank you so much for your attention and patience. I know I might have gone a little too fast, but I was sensitive about time, right? So I'll hand it over back to Anish, right? If you have time for some questions, happy to chat around them. Else, just drop me an email, give me a call, whatever it is, right? Over to you.
I will, for the, let's say one question, so maybe you can answer it in about half a minute or so. I'm sorry. The interesting one from Vinod is saying that a lot of talent being available now because of people losing their jobs and whatever. How much do you think companies will focus on manpower development and retraining?
Okay, so I think that is purely going to be business led, right? That's my long and short answer for him, right? So any kind of training is going to be purely business led, right? I don't think people will have the luxury for fancy training, but any training which is business led will get the right kind of attention from organizations, irrespective of what the kind of numbers are. So the example of Unilever that I talked to you about using Gloat, right, is an example where they are moving people in thousands from parts of the business where they are not potentially required right now, right, to parts of the business where they are required. So I think it's purely going to be driven by business needs, and to that extent, development will have its own significant place in the, at least in the immediate future, for sure.
Wonderful. Okay, Sriram, thank you. I'm sorry we had to kind of cut short from mom. I know I'm getting a few more questions, but privately to me. But I think I should really thank you for covering the entire topic, and it's a pretty vast topic. You've taken up the entire spectrum of HR, and at the end you kind of brought it to the. I really love the way you put in and saying that okay, tools are great, but human role will remain. So there is need to be curation. So on that note, I know we are really just about a couple of minutes away from the next session of ours. So from the on behalf of the executive committee and the entire NIPM Kerala chapter members and the participants who have responded to us in a huge number today, let me take this opportunity to thank you, Sriram. And again, I would request you to spare some more time for us, because there are some more aspects that we've thrown up when maybe we'd like to take on a separate discussion with the L&D committee, which we'll come back to you. So sure. On that note, let me let me wish you all a great evening ahead. Thanks once again to everyone who participated. By the way, NIPM Kerala chapter does evening sessions like this. This was the first time we were wanting to put it to non-members as well across the Zoom platform. So you all can look forward to it. For those who have questions, we have this Facebook page on which Sriram's talk has gone live. So please put your questions there so that maybe Sriram can also be tagged, and we can answer some of them and we can get the conversation continuing. So with that note, once again, thank you all. Have a great evening ahead. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.